Hey everyone. I just recorded a little bit, but I guess my phone's being wonky and it stopped recording at some point. So I'm out here and I was gonna go for a run, but I hurt my leg or something over the weekend. Not exactly sure what happened, but I was walking and then tried to go for a run, and as soon as I started, my one leg started hurting a bunch. I think it's my IT band acting up or something. But so since I can't go for a run today, I decided to go for a walk and talk to you guys. This is somewhere I haven't done one of these yet, I think. It's just a trail out here. It's raining right now, so you can probably tell from the clouds. I'm never sure what's better, to just have the camera facing what I'm seeing so you guys can see where I'm at the whole time, or have it facing me so you can see me as I'm talking. Guess if anyone has a preference or opinion on that, feel free to comment it or something. So today what I wanted to talk about was the topic of life being a game. Everybody's heard the expression, the game of life, at some point, even if it's just in reference to the actual board game, but probably also outside of that, or some reference to life being a game. And I think we should talk about that. That'll be fun. So let's break down what a game is first. A game is essentially just a set of rules. Ooh, got some thunder. A game is essentially just a set of rules and limitations. That doesn't sound fun at all. It's kind of counterintuitive to think that that's what makes a game, or that's what makes playing fun. But it is. Even before I said that it was a combination of rules, limitations, and an objective, but in reality, there doesn't have to be an objective. You can play games without necessarily trying to win. You can play sports without keeping score, just for the fun of playing them. And that's more what life is. There's no set objective. There's no real purpose or meaning to life. And a lot of times people think of that as a negative thing, but it's not. It just means that you create your own. You create your own meaning. You create your own purpose. It's just the difference between having a coloring book with a bunch of lines that you're supposed to stay inside when you color, and having a blank canvas for you to do what you want. When you have a coloring book, there's a purpose and there's meaning to that coloring book, and the purpose of it is for you to stay inside the lines when you color. An empty canvas where you're just painting whatever you want, that has no meaning, no purpose, no intention, nothing until you set all of that. I think that's an important thing to realize. For some people, that can be a freeing thought, and for some people, that can be a thought that sort of leads to a sense of insecurity because they don't have that structure that they feel like might be there if there is a point to life. But again, you can set whatever you want it to be, and it's not going to be wrong. Some people feel like it's their goal in life to help people. Some people feel like it's their goal in life to spread the word about something, or to just travel and see as much of the world as they can. Some people feel like it's to have kids. There's all different kinds of things that people can make the meaning of their life. So it's like a game where you're not keeping score. So, like I was saying, a game is essentially just a system of rules and limitations. And let me go into, I've talked about this before several times, so I'm just going to go over this real quick. But let me talk about what I believe the concept of God, if you want to call it that, or the source of everything is. That's all. When I say God, that's all I mean is just whatever there was before there was anything. What started this whole experience of life and the universe and all that. So that sourceness is just a state of everything. We live in a world of separation. Everything that makes up our reality and our experience in life is just things that have been created through this process of creation by separation. It's sort of an unfolding. It's not, the world doesn't put together like in a, something built or manufactured. It's not pieces stuck together to make things. I mean, sure, that happens. Different parts of nature combine with other parts of nature to build things, but it's all an unfolding. It's like a seed that grows a flower. You don't just find flower petals around and stick them to a stem and stick little flower buds on there and then sprinkle it with pollen and call that a flower. It unfolds from that seed. That seed separates, and then a little stem grows and you have a seedling, and that stem sprouts leaves, and it's this, like a stem separates from that seed, a leaf separates out of that stem, and then the flower grows on top, and you got petals, and then you have the whole thing. It's an unfolding. It's not put together. So that's how the entire, what we would call reality, that's what the entire reality, the entire universe, our entire life experience is. It's just an unfolding of things. If you want to think of the Big Bang and everything unfolded from that, then think of it like that. But the point is, everything unfolded from some sort of source. In the flower example, that source would be the seed. And then that flower is actually part of like a bee flower system. It's not just a flower, because in order for that flower to happen, there needs to be a bee helping it. So they're in this system together, this flower bee or bee flower system. And then that flower grows, and then bee takes pollen and pollinates other flowers, and other flowers grow. But it all comes from that seed. Well, the sourceness, God, whatever you want to think of it as, is like the complete unfolding. If you were to fold every possible thing back up, not just every physical thing, every concept, every idea, every concept of time, every concept of other, every concept of else, of something else, and you put that all back together into whatever you want to think of that sourceness state as. It's just a state of complete unseparateness, a state of non-duality. But when in that state, there's no limits to anything, because there's no concepts of anything. There's no anything. It's everything, but it's also nothing, because in order to have a thing, you have to separate it from everything else. And it's unseparateness. There is no separation in that state. So when you put everything together, you actually end up with no thing, no one individual thing. And that includes concepts. There's no concepts of limitations or rules. In order for that state of unseparateness, that sourceness, to truly be everything, it still has to include the concepts of separateness. It has to include the concepts of duality, the concepts of other, the concepts of I'm this thing and that is some other thing. And our world, our life, our experience in the universe is the playing out of everything that sourceness sort of isn't. It's the playing out of the separate aspects of the thing that is complete unseparateness. So in order to play out like that, in order to experience all these things that would not normally be conceivable as that state of sourceness, that state of unseparateness, that God state, you have to put some kind of direction to it, some kind of filters, some kind of grooves for all that energy to follow, some sort of limitation, some sort of guidelines. You have to have rules in the universe for things to behave a certain way. We would think of this as our laws of physics. There has to be a specific way everything interacts with itself and everything else, even though in reality it's just one thing interacting with itself. And then you have to have something to perceive all of that, because that's the other thing too. In that state of unseparateness, that state of sourceness, that state of non-duality, there's no sense of other. So there's not a perceiver and a perceived. You know, it's like when they say if a tree falls in a forest, does it make a sound? Well, a sound is something that we perceive as people. It's a vibration. It's what we turn a vibration into through our ears and in our brain. So that sound never happens as a sound. That vibration happens, but that sound never happens as a big thunder. But that sound never happened as an audible sound if there's not someone there to perceive it. So all this stuff is separated, all these concepts, all this physical stuff is separated into the world we know. And that happens through limitations and rules and laws. This is why we can't just jump in the air and fly away somewhere. This is why we can only run so fast. This is why if we don't take care of ourselves, there's consequences to that. Those are all laws of nature. And then you, of course, have laws and civilization, like actual legal laws. And then you have not legal laws, but sort of social rules and rules of workplaces. And these are all things that you have to follow if you want to get a certain result. If you want to keep your job, then there's certain things that you should probably not do at work. And sometimes that you shouldn't do outside of work if it gets back to your work. And we always look at this stuff as, oh dear. We always look at this stuff as a bad thing. Like, oh no, there's rules we have to follow. But that's what makes games fun. That's what makes life what it is. If there were no rules at all, then, so say you're playing a game and you just sit down with somebody and you're like, so let's play this game, but there's no rules. All you have to do is win. Little flowers. There's no rules to this game. All you have to do is win. Okay, well, how do you play? Well, you just have to win. There's no rules. There's no anything. There's just the objective of winning. So you're sitting there and you're like, okay, I win. Oh, okay, good job. Let's play again. I win. Okay, let's play again. There's no fun in that. There's no actual game there because there's no rules, there's no limitations, so there's no actual game. So, I mean, I should have stopped my watch before since I'm not actually running. Let me do that. There's no actual game there if there's no rules or laws or limitations or guidelines, because that's what makes the game, is the rules. Sort of like if you don't, with the canvas and coloring book thing, if you just paint a canvas all white or all one solid color, I mean, yeah, you can say you did a painting, but I mean, did you enjoy that? How much did you enjoy that compared to creating an actual picture and setting limitations and guidelines for yourself? Again, it doesn't have to be preset. It can be whatever you set. So if you decide you want to draw a dog, then that means you're going to set rules for yourself on where to put paint to make that dog appear. You're going to draw this line from this point on the canvas to this other point. And if you go past that point, it's not going to look like the dog's paw. It's not going to look like this. It's not going to look like that. So if you want it to look like that, then you have to set those limitations, those rules. And of course, you don't think of it like that. You don't think of it like, okay, I'm going to make a rule that I'm not allowed to go past this line, but I have to do this very specific thing in order to make this picture happen. But as you draw, you're following these ideas that you already have set in your head, that you already know. When you know how to do something, you just know what things to follow and what things don't matter if you follow, as far as rules go. So we always think of all these things in life that's like, oh, this sucks. Like, I have to go to work every day. I can't run as fast as I want to. I can't flap my arms and fly like a bird. I can't do this or that. I have to pay for things. I don't know. I can't jump off of a cliff and land at the bottom and just walk away, even though the view from that would be awesome. You know, like, there's so many things that you would probably do if it didn't mean there were going to be some kind of consequences. But also, if there was no rules or anything, there wouldn't be life. There wouldn't be trees. There wouldn't be grass. Because all of that stuff follows a certain set of rules of the universe. There's rules that say, under the right conditions, if you put a seed in the ground and it gets water and it gets sunlight, it's going to grow into a tree. If that rule didn't exist, there would be no trees. There would be no anything. If there weren't rules that said, okay, when the conditions are right in the ocean, there's going to be waves washing ashore, then you wouldn't be able to go to the beach and listen to the waves and watch the waves and surf and whatever you like to do out in the ocean. There wouldn't be mountains if certain rules weren't met that said, well, this is how Earth moves, and when Earth moves in this certain way under these certain conditions, these mountains are going to form. If there's no rule that said that, no mountains. So everything is only created by certain rules that are set. You know, if you think of having to pay for things and you're like, oh, well, that's a dumb rule. I don't want to have to do that. Well, if you didn't, then there'd be no incentive to make things, and then you wouldn't be able to have any of the things that you like having. And there would be a lot better balance of that. There'd be a lot better balance of the rules that we like to have and the rules that we don't like to have if all the ones, not all, but if a bunch of the ones we experience in civilization weren't set by people. But that's the problem. The problem isn't that there's rules and limitations, because that's what makes a game fun. The problem is the people that get into a position that have the power and the ability to set the rules for the rest of the people, because obviously most people, if they get into a position like that, they're going to set rules that benefit themselves because they're the rule makers. So they're like little kids. Little kids will change rules in the middle of the game if you're doing too good or you're beating them too much. They'll make up rules and change things and say this or that didn't happen. They'll do whatever benefits them if they're the rule maker. And that's a fair thing to be, to have feelings of unfairness about. But also, you have to realize that having rules is what makes everything great. It's what makes anything at all. It's why anything exists. With that being said, let's talk about what would happen if we were in a state of not having any rules. So, if you didn't have any rules, nothing would exist. There'd be nothing that was created. For anyone listening to this that might listen to Alan Watts, this kind of ties into one of my favorite talks by him, and it's something I thought about before, and I was like, that's interesting. And then I heard him talking about it, and I was like, wow, okay. So, like, it felt kind of validating to hear someone else like him talking about the same thing. But imagine you don't have any limitations and you can just do anything you want and you can experience anything you want whenever you want. First of all, that would take a lot of good feelings out of our experience. Because even though there's things that we want to do and we want to do them now, or we want to have them now, everybody knows how much better it feels if you've had to wait for something. You spend a couple years thinking about something you want, or something you want to do, or someplace you want to go, or seeing someone you want to see, or anything you want that you have to wait for. Even if it's just you got to wait a few weeks to go to a restaurant that you really like. When you're finally able to do or get that thing, it just feels so much more rewarding. That's part of the reason I like... Sorry, I had a phone call coming in. That's part of the reason I like... Oh, okay. I don't know who it is. That's part of the reason that I like hiking mountains so much, is because it takes hours and it takes a lot of work to get up there, to get up to the summit of a mountain. But when you get up there, there's not a whole lot of things in life that are a lot more rewarding than that. So if you didn't have that weight, if you could just have or experience anything you wanted anytime you wanted to, I mean, basically, you'd get bored so quickly, and eventually you would just, I don't know, you would just end up in the state of never being satisfied. And it's crazy to think that having anything you want at any time would mean that you're never satisfied. But you just wouldn't find anything satisfying after a point. It's like if you had a button and you could push it and have anything you wanted at any time, you're going to push it and then you're going to have an experience. And then that'll be over, and then you'll push it again and have whatever the next experience you want is. And then that's going to be over, and then you're going to hit it again. And then eventually you just have this instant obtainment of anything you want. And eventually you're just going to be like, okay, I want this thing. I got it. Okay, well, what do I want next? Okay, I got it. Just that quickly. And then soon you're just going to want... You're also going to always know what you're getting and when you're going to get it. Because that's another interesting thing about life. Is, say you're going out on a hike. Part of what makes that hike interesting is you don't know what you're going to come across. You don't know what animals you might see. You don't know what places you might come across, what, stream you might come up to that you like a lot. A lot of the things that are great about life are things that we don't expect, are things that surprise us, are things that we don't see coming. I remember one time I was in Tennessee with my mom and my daughter, and we were out for a hike, and we're coming up to this part of the trail where it goes up, and then it curves around at the top of that trail to the right, and some trees. It was in the woods. And we go up the hill, and just before we start making that curve to the right, see your 4 or 5 bears are on the trail coming the other way around the curve. It was a mama and either 3 or 4 cubs. And they were probably just as surprised as we were, because we stopped and we're looking at them, and they stopped and they're looking at us. And needless to say, we started going backwards and made our way back the other way down the trail, because they were right there on the path. But that was such a cool experience. And if we knew exactly how that experience was going to happen, when it was going to happen, and how it was going to feel, it wouldn't have been nearly as cool. And if that was that feeling that we wanted, and we had a button to get anything we want, we wouldn't even be hitting the button to get an experience. We would just be hitting a button to get that feeling of satisfaction. On the other channel, and we won't give it a name channel, where our podcast was or is, there's an episode on there about satisfaction and what satisfaction is, and how the satisfaction that we look for is common through all the different ways that we get it. And if we had a button that we could just get whatever we wanted, eventually we wouldn't be hitting it to have the experience that we wanted. We'd just be hitting it because we didn't know what experience we wanted next. We would just figure out that we wanted the feeling that experience gave us. And we would just be hitting it for that shot of satisfaction, for that, oh yeah, that just like, yeah, that felt good. We would just be hitting this button to get that feeling. Looks pretty cool out there. The cloudy sky and openness. But eventually, that feeling isn't going to hit the same. And your entire existence would just be sitting there hitting that button to get that sense of satisfaction. But that sense of satisfaction is gonna last shorter and shorter and shorter, a shorter amount of time. And you're gonna keep needing that. It's gonna end up being like a drug addiction, where you're just gonna end up needing that fix more and more and more because it's not doing what it was doing for you before. And your entire existence is just gonna be this conscious awareness of being, eventually you're going to stop even noticing that feeling of satisfaction. And the only reason you're going to sort of notice it is because you notice when you're unsatisfied, because that is going to take over. So your existence would just be this feeling of graffiti bridge. So your existence is just going to be this terrible conscious awareness of always being unsatisfied. And then what you're going to want, the only thing that's going to make you feel good is to be able to feel something you didn't see coming, something you didn't expect, something that surprises you, something that catches you off guard, something that brings you back into the moment and gives you that feeling of presence. It's like when if you're walking along and someone jumps out and scares you, and that split second that they scare you, you're not thinking about whatever you were thinking about before. All you're thinking about is that thing that just happened right then, and you're in a moment of presence. Maybe that's why people like scary movies so much. Because there's that sense of anticipation and that build up and that waiting for something that like waiting for those parts that you want out of a scary movie, the jump scares, the whatever. And when they happen, it snaps you into a moment of presence. Oh, those are cool. I don't know if you saw those birds fly by. Looked like robins, maybe. I don't know. I don't know much about birds, but they were red. But eventually, all you're going to want is for something to happen that you did not expect to happen. When Alan Watts talks about it, he talks about having another button that's a surprise button. Or maybe it's not another button. Maybe he was just talking about having whatever you want and then getting a surprise button. But that's what you're going to want. You're going to want a surprise button, something that you can push and you don't know what's going to happen. So when you're in that, let's go back to that state of sourceness for a sec. When you're in that state of sourceness, there is no surprise. There is no, like, you are every possible thing that could happen. So if you could be aware of that, you'd be aware of everything. You'd know everything. And there's not even any sense of time. So you couldn't have the feeling of something that's going to happen. You couldn't know what's going to happen because there is no past or future. There's just what's going on right now, and what's going on right now is everything. That's why nothing's created in that state, because it's like if you play every musical note that could possibly exist, and you play them all at the same time, and you just hold them, there's no song. You can't pick anything out from anything else, and there's no song. There's just that. There's just what there is. Nothing's created out of that until you separate some of those notes out and put a different time and rhythm to them. So life and reality as we know it, and the universe, and this whole Maya deal, this whole deal of the illusion of everything being an illusion, this whole play, this whole act of separateness and other and duality, It's so we can experience stuff like that. So we can actually experience limitations, because that's not something that can be experienced in that state of sourceness. It's so we can experience things that we don't see coming, that we don't expect. It's so God can experience that stuff. That's why we have the individual conscience, the individual consciousness that we have. Because if we were tapped into this like all-knowing consciousness, if we were tapped into this awareness that always knew what was going to happen, there'd be nothing unexpected. There'd be no surprises. There'd be nothing to look forward to, because we already knew what was going to happen. This is why you don't want people to ruin the end of movies and books and shows for you. You don't want to know what's going to happen. You don't want to know the ending of it. And even if you know the ending of it and you still want to watch it, you don't want to know every little detail on how we get to that ending. You want to experience that for yourself. That's why we like shows and movies with plot twists and surprises. Well, life's the same way, but you can't have any of that if you don't have those rules and limitations. Like we have to figure out how to navigate all of this within those rules and limitations. And then we set our own objective for life. And then we have to figure out how to meet that objective with all these rules and limitations. And that's what makes it a game, because that's what a game is. It's just this system of meeting some sort of objective, or not, or just playing the game, but doing it with these rules and with these limits. And not everybody's playing the same game. Some people have different limitations than others. Everybody's born different. People are born in different places in the world. Some people are born with illnesses and all kinds of things that doesn't give them the same starting point as someone else. Some people have different environments growing up, and this is why it's so important to be understanding of other people. Because not everybody is playing, like not everybody was given the same rules originally as we were. Not everybody was given the same limitations or lack thereof. And we shouldn't excuse bad behavior. We shouldn't excuse people doing things that are wrong. But we should accept that those things do happen in life, and we should understand why they happen. That's what compassion is. It's not saying everything's okay. It's not saying that, oh, this person did this terrible thing, but that's okay because of this excuse. No, you can say that it's not okay, but still be compassionate about a situation. And still think, well, that was a terrible thing to do, but I understand. And as much as I feel bad for the person, that if whatever they did was something to another person, you can also understand how they got from being born to being a person that would do something like that. Even if it's little stuff, like I'm sure you've known someone before and you looked at how they are as an adult, and maybe you knew them from a kid and you were like, yeah, that person is definitely their dad, or that person is definitely their mom. Like, I definitely see why they're like that now after seeing how they grew up. And once you understand, I mean, that could be a whole nother conversation, but I think understanding some kind of perspective that involves that idea of life being a game and a game being a system of limitations, and that everybody is given a different system, it can help you to be a little more understanding with people. And when you're a little more understanding with people, you can recognize that things that happen in the world are bad, but it helps you to not be so frustrated or annoyed all the time with those things. I think I'm going to end that one here. Okay, I want to make sure I wasn't upside down when I turned it around. I think I'm going to end that one here. And yeah, usual YouTube stuff, like, subscribe. I will try to do these pretty frequently, so if you like it, yeah, do those things, subscribe and such. If you have any topic suggestions or anything like that, feel free to drop them in the comments or message me or whatever you'd like to do. All right, have a great one.